just burnt the church down. What y'all doing, yo?
Are you watching this?
We were indeed watching.
Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. Our special guest this evening is Ed Holloway, who has been a state representative for a number of years. How many years were you?
That was 17 years.
17 years. Wow. Well, that's great. Now, here is our sample ballot, which we're putting out for this election coming up. I guess it's May 19th, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's free. And if you give us a call right now at 893-2444, we'll send you a copy of the sample ballot. It has all of the elections coming up on May 19th.
And it also includes the answers to the questions that most conservative and Christians are interested in and how they each one responded.
Yes.
And we've talked about this in the past about how important primaries are because they
Yes.
select the candidate that you'll ultimately be faced with having to choose from when you get to the November election. So unfortunately, the large percentage, sometimes less than 10% of the people determine the candidate that you will have on the ballot in November. And I think it's very critical that the selection process take place in the primary. Now the voting registration is now passed and everything is concentrating on the last few weeks before the election. So the more informed people get, the better they can make the choice that'll make the difference in November. And it's a critical thing. And that we're facing problems in Kentucky. Forbes magazine has listed Kentucky as in a critical condition. Bonded indebtedness, the other unfunded liabilities are increased to a large extent that is unsustainable. And something has to be done, and the next administration has got a tremendous task ahead of them.
Okay, now here is an article on the influence of Islam in America today. And some of the quotes here: our nation was founded on the principle of religious freedom and tolerance, but that certainly does not mean that we need to allow people into our nation who hate everything that America represents.
Right. Well, I think that illustrates something that was brought to the forefront by the professor at the University of Kentucky, who is a Muslim and is runs or chairman of a Islamic Studies course in Frankfurt, and he made the statement that we would never, as Muslims, assimilate into the American public because we do not believe in the principles and other issues that America was founded on.
So they don't want to obey our laws, but they want to come in and take over the country, so
Right.
we have to obey their laws.
And in their country, and in the America now, in a number of communities, the push is for Sharia law.
See, it says they want to practice polygamy, have 3 or
Right.
4 wives.
They
want
have a limit of 4.
4. Okay, then they want to have, beating the women that don't
Right.
do what they tell them to do.
If you have insulted the family
Yeah.
and you've caused them embarrassment, they have the right to put you to death. And these are the kind of things that are going on with the increased number of immigrants we're bringing in. That number becomes more and more important. Jefferson County, for example, has 15% of our population now are immigrants. We have a large contingent of Muslims. We brought in 3,000 from Somalia in one group, another large group coming in. We're now bringing in people from Syria,
Right.
large numbers, and they are not very well equipped in terms of communication. They're having a lot of problems in working into the community, and the education system is having a tremendous problem of accommodating the Muslim children that are attending the school. Shortage of translators and other things that are happening. and it's having an impact on the normal curriculum and activities of education. So all of these things are continuing to compound and increase, and is getting extremely bad.
Well, you know, Ed, we have 4 videos here that documents a lot of what you were saying. One of these videos shows how the administration just opened the door for 73,000 more immigrants to come in from Syria, like you were saying, and most of them are Muslim, which means a certain percentage of them are going to be terrorists.
That's another very good point, because there's no screening of the background of the individuals. They're brought in without any knowledge of what their background is and who sent them and why they're here.
And what they want to do when they get over here. So then here's another DVD that reviews the last 1,000 years of Muslim history in the world. And of course, we just had the 100th anniversary of the murder of all those Christians in Turkey, the Armenian Christians. Okay, and here's comments by Bridget Gabriel about the fact that all the Germans were not Nazis and all the Russians were not communists, so you can't expect that all of the Muslims are going to be terrorists, but a certain percentage of them are. Okay, then here is another one that I can't get over. It shows a big auditorium full of men, and they're shaking their fists and saying, "Death to America! Death to America!" And these are the people that Obama wants to give the atomic bomb to.
Exactly. The Islamic movement in Iran is causing a tremendous amount of problem right now in the Persian Gulf and other areas where they're isolating and attacking in a very subtle way Saudi Arabia, trying to neutralize them, and they've threatened them with the Gulf and with the Straits of Hormuz to prohibit all of the Saudi oil tankers and others from going through, because it's right on that narrow point next to Iran, and they're using that as a blackmailing. And as a result of that, we're playing a neutral role. We're not involved, and the Saudis are becoming very, very alarmed with what's going on, and the fact that all this is happening, and they're wanting now to become a nuclear power.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And in order to defend themselves against Iran. So the thing that is still bubbling in the Middle East is increasing and multiplying, and we're faced with a tremendous tax. And later, if we don't do something to help contain this. And the reason that they're all after this thing with a treaty and to make this arrangement with the Iran was to protect the legacy of Obama. And this is why the United States Congress is now taking a serious look at it. A piece of legislation is now in the process that they will attempt to take the ability to review the treaty, to make decision as to whether it's acceptable or not acceptable, and to reject it if necessary. And this, I think, is an extremely important movement, and one that we need to follow closely and make sure and contact congressmen and others to support this thing, because what will happen is that, sure, we can get by for a couple of years with nothing on it, but it's ultimately the Iranians will get the atomic bomb and the nuclear capability, and it's increasing, and all of our intelligence community is extremely worried about what's going down and what the ultimate consequences will be.
Well, and really it's a life and death for our children and grandchildren if Iran gets that atomic bomb.
Well,
it's terrible.
The thing is that right now they're using everything they can to stimulate, and they're behind the financing and other supplying of all of the Islamic militants, the ISIS, and the rest of them are being supported behind the scenes by Iran, and it's a growing problem, and we've got very little time to address the problem.
And you can't believe they say, oh no, we're not going to do an atomic bomb, but you know, they are masters at deceit.
They've always done this, and in one of the things the Quran says it's extremely necessary in order to achieve the ultimate goals of Islam is that it's permissible to lie, to cheat, to do anything necessary that promotes and furthers the goals and objectives of Islam.
Wow. Now, this is another DVD that has Death to America, has the Iranians chanting that.
Right.
And then the other thing is it shows that the Democrats at one time voted to totally remove God from their platform, and then they tried to get it back in and fooled around. And the last one is more about the immigrants coming in from Muslim nations to go on welfare and basically bankrupt America by putting all of these people on welfare. And of course, the people coming across the border in Mexico, I think there's 5 million that Obama wants to put on welfare. And
well, they have no ability to assimilate into the American culture. They have no job skills or anything else that's applicable in this country. And the one thing that alarms me more than anything else is what's happening to the Christians in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Completely annihilating several villages that have been Christian for
since
about,
Moses,
for years. It goes all the way back.
Or St. Paul, anyway.
Right. All of those things, and they're being systematically destroyed. All of the people are being exterminated. We have refugees that have gone into some of the Kurd areas and others that are starving, that have no medical aid, no food, no clothing, no anything else. We're doing nothing to support those immigrants, and then nothing's being done for any of the Christians. What you have to understand about the Muslim, too, is the moderate Muslims, the ones who are not part of this, are being, and I guess you would call it intimidated, threatened, and those who have supported anybody from the West are being systematically executed themselves. Their own Muslim people. And this is a thing that worries, let's say, a moderate Muslim.
Right.
Is that, and if I do anything to further their assimilation or anything else, then I will become a victim. So if you're either a terrorist or you're not.
Now, this is the DVD by Bill Federer, and he goes into how the Muslims have been doing this for, I think it's about 1,000 years.
Right. Well, yeah.
And it's all in here and documented with pictures and all the documents to show that they've been doing this for 1,000 years. That's what started the Crusades.
Right.
And they're still doing the same thing today. Now, all of these videos, all 4 of them, plus this voter guide are free. And all you have to do is call our number right now, 893-2444, and we'll get this out to you right away. And you can make copies, give it out to everybody you know.
Well, it's not only the Islam, but the whole breakdown of our culture, our society, and it's illustrated by what was happening in Baltimore. And Baltimore, one of the things, and I've got a lot of friends who are sports fans, and the fact that they had to cancel the baseball game, and that when they had an afternoon game 2 days after the riots and all that, they did not permit a single person into the stadium. It's completely empty. They're going to play the game, and then there was a 3-game series that was scheduled later in the week that has been moved to another state. And my baseball friends would talk about that. It's unbelievable. Never in the history of organized sports has anything like this ever happened.
They're playing the game, but no spectators are allowed.
No spectators are allowed into the stadium.
Now, we were watching this earlier. This is the mayor of Baltimore, Stephanie Blake, and she says she wants to intentionally give room for those that want to destroy things.
Worked with the police and instructed them to do everything that they could to make sure that the protesters were able to exercise their right to free speech. It's a very delicate balancing act, because while we tried to make sure that they were protected from the cars and the other things that were going on, we also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
There's a situation in Baltimore that nothing has changed. You've got a Democratic administration that's been there for over 60 years. Each year it's gotten worse. They've had several riots in the past. They've had the same kind of conditions, the same kind of looting. All the businesses that were destroyed then have never come back. They've been able to bring in a drugstore national chain and put it into the heart of that so that people would have access to certain items, as well as pharmaceutical and all that. And now it's been destroyed.
Really?
So there's nothing left of that one and a dozen others. And unfortunately, the small businesses that have been destroyed, most of them didn't have insurance or inadequate amounts, and they're left, and their families and their friends and everybody else connected with that and their employees are out of a job, out of work, out of money, and no way to replace and go back into business. So
A little bit like Detroit, Michigan.
very much so. That's another community
same
that's
reasons.
been run for the same people for the last 50, 60 years. It was once the #1 city in America, the largest employer, and on and on and on, with everything that was wonderful about America. Now it's completely
A slump.
devastated.
Well, Ed, don't you think a lot of this same movement is going on in all of our major cities?
All of the inner cities, they were told by the government to come to the cities and we will provide you with welfare, with education, all that. And in the process, it went the other way. They were put on the welfare, became totally dependent on the government for every bit of their subsistence. And in the process, the education system was, I would use the term, dummied down in order to accommodate these people who had very little skills to bring to the table, instead of going into a very strict program of bringing them up to speed. They would try to accommodate them. And in the process, you ended up with a community like Detroit. You've ended up with Baltimore and other cities that are facing the same thing. It's just a matter of time.
I can't believe that the mayor said we need to give them room so they can destroy.
Well, they wanted to express themselves, and we didn't want to put that. They
Can
were
you
inadequately
imagine?
prepared. They had a very, very limited number of police there. Against, when you take a couple of hundred policemen against several thousand rioters and all that, there was nothing they could do. The governor tried repeatedly to send the National Guard in and get permission from the mayor. It was not given. They didn't want to create any atmosphere. And now they brought them in, and even then the curfew is being ignored. So we've got continuing problems there, and this will, when these things happen, and we're very much aware of them at the moment. The media covers it all, and it is a big thing. But within a few months, nothing's changed, but that community stays the same, and it continues to deteriorate. And then we'll see it again in a few years, another riot, another May. And this is a breakdown of the American family that's happened. Now, the one lady that they caught on tape catching her son, and was hitting him and everything else and sending him home. And there was a great cry about a wonderful woman who would come there and saw her son part of this violence and all that, and she took it upon herself to go after him and take him and grab hold of him and all that, and found out that she was a single woman with 6 children and totally dependent on welfare for existence. And these are the things that have kept this programs of supposedly helping people have compounded the problem and has had the complete opposite results. And something has to be major change, and it's up to every individual American to work with this.
Let me just repeat, we have videos that document much of what Ed has said today, and they're free, and every American needs to see these videos. And of course, it's very important to get this voter guide. And the number to call right now is 893-2444. And we'll get them out to you right away. So there's things that we can do. There are a lot of problems, but we're not here to just say how terrible things are, but we're here to change everything and to give everyone an opportunity to get involved and to turn things around.
Exactly, and the responsibility lays on each of us individually, because if we don't talk to our friends and others and get a turnout in the primaries and all that, we're faced with that dilemma of making a choice that makes very little difference in November.
Right, right. Now, here is another newsletter, and the thing is, if you are part of our network of emails, we'll email you about a number of these issues that you can just click on a link and it will send them an email to your congressman, to your state representative, to your state senator, to President Obama. It's a really important way of letting our elected officials know that we're not going to take all of this deterioration. So if you call this number and get your free DVDs and your free voter guide, just tell them you want to be on the email list. And that number again is 893-2444. And we'll put you on the email list and we'll give you updates and newsletters and the opportunity to just click on a link to get that information out. It says, Obama doesn't want to admit that there's a problem with radical Islam. And so this person is writing him and says, if someone gets killed, it will be your fault.
Well, this is a classic example of the FBI and other agencies of federal government that should be on top of this issue have been instructed. Their training manuals were rewritten to where they could not mention anything about Islam, could not have any impact on any Muslim group or any mosque in America, and they've been completely neutralized in the issue of Islam. And all of these things that are going on in our intelligence community, from the Department of Defense to other agencies, are extremely worried about what's going on, and not only here but around the world. A classic example was what went on in the breakdown of some of the other countries in the so-called...
Yeah, Europe. A lot of Europe.
Exactly, and we've got a situation in France that has continued to deteriorate. You've got an extremely large number in England, and there again, you mentioned earlier the fact that they can have 4 wives. The British government is now paying benefits and medical care to the 4 wives of a lot of the Muslims that are living in England now, and that's another movement they're trying to get transported to America.
Now, you were talking about some of these situations. Here's the video of the situation in Dearborn, Michigan,
Right.
when they had some kind of Muslim fair, and some missionaries went up there and passed out Bible tracts, and they threw bottles at them and tried to stone them.
They were attacked.
You won't believe this. This is one of the 4 videos we want to send you today. This is the riot in Dearborn, Michigan, and it shows what they're trying to do. They're trying to take over areas of the country and institute their anti-American laws.
Sharia law, which is the foundation of all the radical aspects of Islam.
Now, don't forget, that number again is 893-2444. And just if no one is there, just leave your message on the answering machine, your name, address, and phone number, and we'll get right back to you. Let's see. Now here he's talking about immigration. He says the administration is determined to hand America over to illegal aliens and give amnesty to 5 million illegal aliens right away. It's nothing but a free pass to illegal aliens to collect welfare and government handouts
Well,
and bankrupt our country.
exactly. At the same time, again, we look at the border areas of America
Yeah.
and the influx of people we do not know anything about, and Islam has been working with the drug cartels
Yeah.
in Latin America and South America and others, are using that as an infiltration point to have them coming in with the illegal aliens coming across our southern border.
Right. It's just a bad deal. But you say, well, what can I do about it? Get these videos and show them to your friends, because a lot of people are not going to believe what's happening until they see it themselves on these videos. These are documentary videos that will actually show you what's happening. And we need to get one to every American needs to see this. And they're free. We'll send them to you free, and you just give them away to your friends. Say, you won't believe this, but take a look at it and let me know what you think. Everyone needs to see this. Everyone needs one of those voter guides and needs to get out and vote May 19th.
Exactly.
So
all of us are part of the thing about we're very forgiving, we're very compassionate in others and toward others, and particularly others, minorities and others. But at the same time, we have a hard time believing that these things happen. We always react after the fact. How did that happen? And the bottom line is, we think most of the time, oh, they would never do that. It would never happen.
that's right.
We would, oh, that's impossible. So that's why it's necessary that we be informed, and we do know the in-depth part, the things that the media and others are not telling us, the elected officials
Absolutely.
in Washington. And I think there was another classic example of a former head of the CIA who said the biggest threat to the United States of America is a 2 square mile area called Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I think Porter Goss was extremely right when he made that statement. And it increases, and because of the paralysis that are taking place politically, they're afraid of this, and all of the concentration is being reelected to constantly be elected.
Ed, we're out of time. I want to thank Ed Holloway for his great contribution today, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.